Welcome to Slash Forward. Imagine, if you will, that you lost some family members due to a terrible tragedy, but that their remains were never recovered. Through extensive searching, at your own personal cost, you not only locate them, but find that despite being children alone in the woods, they are still alive. Do you think you would have what it takes to nurture and raise them through their recovery and subsequent development? If so, would you still feel as confident if they had taken on the mannerisms of a feral ghost woman and forgone all social norms? Today we're going to learn how to do just that through the training vehicle that is the 2013 film Mama. It was produced by Guillermo del Toro, but actually directed by Andy Muschietti, whose story intertwines folklore with a story grounded in reality. Do you think he lived up to Guillermo's expectations? Let me know what you thought in the comments below. And if you enjoy the video, hitting the like button would help me out a lot. Let's get to it. We open on radio exposition describing a market crash pursuant to an office shooting at a holding company where one of the senior partners, Jeff Desange, went missing. We then find Victoria and Lily waiting patiently as footsteps pound down the hall. Their father, Jeff, bursts in and rushes them out of the house, sans mommy. They're going nowhere in particular, but Jeff really wants to get there fast, leading to an inevitable loss of control. Back at the house, we find his brother Lucas and the police a few steps behind in the confusion, and the picture comes into resolution as the radio now confirms that Jeff Desange was the shooter, and that the target of his ire was his estranged wife, who is confirmed dead. Now fleeing on foot, they find reprieve in an abandoned cabin that was named after a font. Partially abandoned. Jeff starts a fire to help the girls settle into their new life in the country, and then goes to engage in his mid-afternoon meltdown. This is interrupted when Victoria sees a woman outside who's not on the ground. He doesn't hear this, however, because he's been consumed with exploring ways to assuage his guilt. He eventually settles on keeping the girls from harm by mortally harming them, but is diverted by a dark entity. In the night, as they wait patiently and wonder how they'll survive, they're provided a single cherry. That should hold them over. Flash forward 5 years to Lucas in his apartment, coordinating an ongoing search effort for his brother's remains. When his girlfriend Annabelle comes out to join him, they discuss the fact that the hired searcher's last paycheck bounced because Lucas has spent all his money searching for dear Jeff, not realizing, of course, that he attempted to kill his own children. Luckily, since they're already out there, he's still got the boys on the hook for now. Even more lucky, when Ron goes to take a leak, he rolls a Yahtzee in the form of Jeff's Benz. He and Bernsey head deeper into the wilderness and find the abandoned cabin, entering cautiously. There is clear evidence inside that there was presence of children at some point, due to the wall drawings, thousands of cherry pits, and, of course, the two feral children who confront them. The successful rescue is considered generally good, except it really cramps Annabelle's rock and roll lifestyle. Regardless, she supports Lucas as he visits Dr. Dreyfus, who warns that while Victoria is showing signs of recovery, Lily may have been too young to be normalized for polite society. Lucas goes in delicately and finds the girls to be very quick and agile, and he tries to win over Victoria with a pair of new specs, like a proper English lass. They form a bond as he is the spitting image of Jeff, and of course because she doesn't know that Daddy had intended to kill her. 90 days later, Dr. Dreyfus gives a positive report as they're making good progress. He explains that they survived by creating an imaginary guardian they call Mama, who cared for them and fed them cherries. He recommends a transplant into a loving home, but we also learn this hearing is a debate with their maternal Aunt Jean vying for custody of the girls. Dr. Dreyfus does wonder whether Lucas and Annabelle are serious enough about parenthood to convert to a sufficiently clean lifestyle to care for the girls. But on the other hand, Jean lives on the other side of the country and the doctor wants to keep the girls close so he can leech off that clout. But if they agree to stay in a house the uni keeps for research purposes and provide him unlimited access, they can win his recommendation. And soon they're reassuring Jean that they intend to honor her visitation rights. Dreyfus starts right in with the questioning. Victoria claims Mama showed her in a dream how a woman escaped from a psychiatric hospital, fleeing into the wilderness with her baby before jumping off a cliff. After Annabelle breaks up with her band, putting her musical aspirations behind her, they all converge on their new home. Annabelle seems eager to set some clear rules.
No, don't call me that. I'm not your mom.
"Oh, thank you." And then they go to the backyard, which has been outfitted with some sweet boxes and a dachshund. Then they enjoy a simple dinner, each in their own way, before turning in for the night. Soon thereafter, Dr. Dreyfus goes to research some medical records and see if he can find evidence of a patient like the one Victoria described. Luckily, he runs across a very helpful clerk who points him to the 19th century case of Edith Brennan. And just so we all know the situation, we're brought back to the house where the girls engage in some crafts and synchronized humming. Then, when putting away laundry, Annabelle nearly walks in on a game of tug-of-war that involves Lily and not Victoria. Later on, during a jam sesh, there's an electrical disturbance accompanied by some strange noises. It may have just been Lily acting like a little freak, but Annabelle's left shaking like a leaf. Although it's really nothing that a little smooching can't cure, but a figure in the mirror takes her out of the mood. Lucas goes to investigate but finds the girls fast asleep. Insistent that she didn't imagine it, she sends him off to check downstairs. Along the way, he finds a strange creeping fungus expanding across the wall. The inky darkness eventually gives birth to a moth, before something else instigates an involuntary moonsault over the top rope into a bellybuster across the staircase. Despite taking a good bump, he winds up in the ICU in a hopefully temporary coma. Then Dr. Dreyfus casually strolls in to nonchalantly make it seem like it would be only natural for Annabelle to take over care of the girls. At home, again, we have no signs of entry or theft, which means the police are powerless to do anything. So she settles into bed and promptly has a nightmare. Lily's there, natch, but she's snapped awake by strange moanings in the dark. The next day, we learn that the girls are coping with this tragedy by talking to the walls and making elaborate crafts. Jogging a memory, Dreyfus goes back to his earlier tapes where there was a similar doll that the girls claimed was made by Mama. He also notes that Victoria has an unnerving way of looking past his shoulder toward the ceiling. He then gets a voicemail from the friendly clerk at Public Records to let him know that she made a new discovery. At the house, they're all having a pretty chill evening, even though Annabelle gets suspicious that they're goofing on her. Then everyone goes to bed, but Mama almost immediately comes out of the closet for game time. The girls start up their synchronized humming again, which wakes Annabelle, and she's disturbed when they're joined by an unexpected bass. She whips the door open and shames the girls for having a good time. Unable to shake the feeling that there was someone else with them, she approaches the closet. However, when Victoria pleads with her not to open it, she does respect their privacy. Instead, she visits with the doctor to discuss her concern that someone is coming to visit them in the night. He plays some video of their humming to confirm it's the same song. It is, but she insists that it was tuned to a much lower register. This leads the doctor to suggest dissociative personality disorder. He believes Victoria is Mama as a means of coping. Seeing that Annabelle is somewhat disturbed by this, he reassures her that it's a treatable condition and that she's perfectly safe. I mean, what can a 9-year-old with a knife do to an adult while she's sleeping? Later at the archives, the doctor is guided to another file she found regarding the Edith Brennan matter. It's a box of physical remains, so that's cool. Then she educates your boy on the secrets of the occult.
A ghost is an emotion bent out of shape.
She is such a tremendous help here, and she suggests that there's some sort of wrong that needs to be righted in order to make Mama go away. Back with the girls, Lily's still popping out of boxes and making weird noises, and Annabelle gets a whiff of Mama. And then at the hospital, we're shocked to discover that despite her age, Mama is a straight-up hacker. She helps Lucas by giving him a vision that directs him toward the cabin, followed by a grand mal seizure. Hey, thanks! The family visits now that Lucas is awake, and they all share their longings of reuniting. The visit is spent sharing pictures and nibbling on nearby moths. But at home, Victoria has become morose. She's softening toward Annabelle and doesn't want her to get hurt due to Mama's jealous streak. Then Jean arrives because she gets the girls on Thursdays. Understanding that Annabelle is not a natural mother figure, she tries to leverage this by enticing her to let her have the girls for a few days, so Annabelle can go rock out and do some drugs or something. Instead, Annabelle runs her off, but only after ruling her out as a suspect in the mystery of the baritone hummer. Of course, Jean's a bitch, so she goes straight to her car to call CPS. Annabelle tries to loop Lucas in on these events so he's in the know, and he lets slip that the girls are the most important thing to him, complicating their relationship. Sometime later, Victoria has another hypnosis session where the doctor gets right into asking about Mama. He's told she lives in the walls but doesn't get much more than that. He insists on trying to ascertain her true identity, leading to an emotional outburst and another wall apparition. He tries to mask his fear and scoot out of there like nothing's wrong, but he knows he's on to something big. Through narration of his session notes, we learn he believes he's found some sort of doorway and intends to acquire the evidence needed to prove this extraordinary discovery. That evening, Mama decides to show Annabelle some scenes relating to the circumstances surrounding her flight from the hospital, pursuit through the woods, and escape at all costs mentality. This pushes her into another dream in which she becomes Mama's small spoon before she fully wakes up. Meanwhile, in the girls' room, Lily wants Victoria to come with her and Mama, but she chooses to stay behind. As a result, Lily escapes too late and finds Mama has already left the area, because concurrently, Dr. Dreyfus has arrived at the cabin. At night, of course, and Mama has some haunting to do. He finds the gateway and calls out to Mama, hoping to open a dialogue with her. He claims to be able to provide what she needs, but soon learns that she's not really interested in all that. The next morning, Annabelle wakes up and discovers Lily shivering in the bushes. Maternal instincts kick in and she rushes her inside to try to warm her up with some jujitsu. After a brief struggle, the warm touch of a corporeal mom finally breaks through her feral ways. But that's not good in terms of the jealousy issue. Victoria then whips up a quick spaghetti breakfast as Annabelle tells Lily to head downstairs. But then,
Annabelle! Lily's hungry!
a devastating revelation. She peers into the closet and finds the doorway, but is interrupted before finding more. Her first instinct is to consult with Dr. Dreyfus, but she can't seem to reach him. So she drives to his office and finds his assistant to be somewhat frazzled by his disappearance. Taking advantage of the lack of supervision, she hops into his office and swipes his box of records. As she's doing that, Lucas starts feeling an intense itch to get his ass over to Clifton Forge, which he does. Once they get back to the house, we see that the box had the doctor's whole damn laptop. It reveals his thirst for fame and fortune as she finds a draft of the book about Mama that he's been working on. She also finds a recording of the therapy session explaining Mama's origins, which matches her dream. In this expanded version, we learn that Mama and the baby were separated on the way down, and she had been wandering the woods looking for her until she happened upon the girls who assuaged her sadness. The human remains that were filed away are actually of the baby. A little later, Victoria attempts to comfort Annabelle and tells her that she loves her. While outside, Mean Jean rolls up looking to get some sweet evidence of abuse she can turn over to CPS. Upstairs, the girls are playing when they hear something. They go downstairs and find Mama, but Victoria recognizes that she is pissed, which sends them scurrying. Hearing the ruckus, Annabelle comes to check on them, but her appearance only exacerbates the rage. So Mama chases her down and tackles her, and the girls are like, "Mom, stop sucking on backs, it's embarrassing." Their empathy gives her pause, and Jean's presence downstairs distracts her fully. Jean is shocked to find immediate evidence of substandard housekeeping. Then Victoria arrives at the kitchen and finds Aunt Jean twerking like crazy, apparently now a vessel for Mama. When Annabelle wakes up from her brief blackout, the girls are gone. Thinking quickly, she grabs the remains and heads to Clifton Forge. She calls Lucas along the way but can't reach him, but then he shows up in the road, and then they find the cabin. Inside is Jean's husk, but no sign of the others. They head out back and find their way to the cliff where the ladies are just hanging out. In an attempt to extricate the girls from her custody, Annabelle distracts Mama with her actual child's desiccated remains. This rejuvenates her to a significant degree, until Lily snaps her back into reality. To reclaim her prize, she gives Lucas's heart a little squeeze, and then tosses Annabelle aside like a sack of potatoes. Unwilling to let go, the two factions tentatively arrive at a split agreement, through which Mama will retain custody of Lily and Victoria will remain with the living. Mama and Lily then dramatically recreate that fateful event, and upon impact, turn into some moths. So that's cool. Ultimately, it's very sad. But also, it's not like Lily really fit in very well anyway. Wow, did we just watch the same movie 2 weeks in a row? And they were both released in 2013. Not to imply they were copies or anything, but just to say it's interesting how strongly implanted some of these tropes are in our collective storytelling minds. You can basically take the same framework and repackage it, and it hits in a completely different way. I did enjoy Mama more than Dark Skies. I think it had more mood and style throughout, and a slightly more concrete set of rules to help carry us through the story. Obviously, being so similar, both films fall short in some of the same ways. So rather than reiterate everything I said about Dark Skies, I'm going to try to expand on my prior critiques. When I said the movie feels like lots of little things happening, I meant that it felt as though the filmmakers came up with what they thought would be a really interesting and creepy premise. Thinking about how how the premise could be used, they then came up with a series of different scenes or events that could illustrate how the danger being presented works in its respective cinematic universe. Only after that do they have to start working to develop some sort of story to stretch around it, hoping to pull everything together while keeping the audience's suspension of disbelief within reasonable boundaries. The end result can feel somewhat disjointed, and is typically identified by movies having a strong start, somewhat muddled middle, and often confusing or dissatisfying ending. Although to the credit of this particular movie, it was at least interesting. Recent films like The Woman in the Window and Things Seen and Heard suffer the same weaknesses, but are also kinda boring. Mama and Dark Skies, on the other hand, are worth the time. Before we go, I'd like to give a huge thanks to my donors memorialized in the Hall of Headshots. I have a website set up where you can support the channel through donations or merch. Any donation unlocks uncensored movie reviews of Life Force and Under the Skin, with others to be added over time. And if you enjoyed the video, I would love for you to become a part of the channel by subscribing. Thanks for watching.